Hi everybody, I'm Flea and I'm here to give you your very first bass lesson. I'm very pleased to do it too. Well, we'll start with the bass itself. This bass is a Flea bass, which is a mighty fine bass. A bass is made up of a few different parts. Firstly, we have the body, which is a big, good slab of wood, which makes me happy. A nice big slab of wood. And we make sure that the wood that we get at Flea Bass comes from farmed wood and comes from sustainable sources, which is very important to me. So we have the body for the bass, then we have the neck of the bass, which is this big piece that juts out here. And on top of the neck, we have a fingerboard, which is made out of rosewood. And it's a nice fingerboard for pushing your fingers on. And in the fingerboard, we have these vertical pieces of metal that go along the fingerboard here, and they're called frets. And if you press down on in between any particular fret, it makes different notes because it changes the length of the string, which in turn makes the note higher or lower. So if you play with your hand down, with your finger down on this fret, and you play this note, which happens to be a B, you have a B because the string is this long. But if you move your finger up and the string becomes shorter because of where your finger is, then the note gets higher. And so if I go from this B all the way up an octave to this B, it gets higher. So we have the body, we have the neck, we have the fingerboard, and we have the frets. At the end of the neck, we have this white piece of plastic, which is called the nut. And the nut basically keeps the strings in place, so they sit in their proper place on the neck. And after the nut, we have this whole other piece of the bass, which is called the headstock. And in the headstock, there are 4 tuning pegs, each one corresponding to a different string. If you turn the peg in either direction, it will make the string higher or lower. And the idea for the conventional tuning for the bass is to tune the string so that the notes the strings are each a fourth apart, E, A, D, and G, which is how the traditional tuning for the bass guitar is. And speaking of the strings, these 4 strings, the lowest one is the E, the next one is the A, the next one is the D, and then the G. E, A, D, G. E, A, D, G. Okie dokie. Then when you come down here to the other end of the bass here, we have this black rectangular black plat thing, which is the pickup. And the pickup takes when you strike the fingers with your string, it turns that noise into an electric signal, which then travels through the electronics of the bass and through this cord all the way through to that Galloping amplifier over there, and makes a sound. So you need the pickup to amplify your bass. And without amplifying an electric bass, not too many people are going to hear it. So you need a pickup. Then the strings go into this piece down here, which is called the bridge. And the bridge serves to anchor the strings to the bass and to adjust. There's little screws in here which you can adjust with an Allen wrench, which adjusts the height of the strings on the neck, which is called the action. Different people prefer the action different ways, depending on how you like the bass to feel, how you like it to sound. And that's something that kind of comes with time of playing a bass for a while. You find out how you like the action, and you adjust it, accordingly. At Flea Bass, we're doing our best to adjust it into a really nice, mellow way to play the bass, which is how I like it. I like it pretty low and pretty easy playing. I don't see any reason to make it difficult to play. I like it to be easy to play. And the strings go into the bridge there. Then there's these 4 holes in the back. When you string the bass, you feed the string in through these holes, and then you bring them out and bring them up to tuning pegs. And I think later on in this DVD, we'll show you how to string the bass. The back of the bass here also has this orange piece here, which covers up this cavity, this hole in the back of the bass, which gives you access to the electronics of the bass, which is not something I think you'll normally need to get into. Then we have this orange round piece here, which is the pick guard. The pick guard, through time, has served to protect the bass from any scratches when you play it with a pick. But personally, I'm not worried about scratches. I don't know about any of you out there, but for me, a little scratch, a little weathering gives the bass a little soul. So the pick guard mostly serves as an aesthetic piece. So we designed this Flea bass to make it look cool. I really like the way it looks. we have these two knobs here. One is the volume knob, and as you notice, if I play play a note, it can get louder if I turn up the knob, or quieter if I turn down the knob. So this is the volume knob, and then we have here, this is a tone knob, which at its lowest point gives it the lowest end sound, and at its highest point gives the highest end sound. So it's something you fool with and find the sound that you like. If you see, if I play this bass line here, with it all the way down, it'll be a very low, muddy sound, like if I play a reggae bass line. Which is, you know, for a reggae type of sound, you want a real bottomy sound. But then if I turn it all the way up, it'll be a more high-endy sound, which would serve a different purpose. Depending on what you want. You know, I use my tone knob at all different places, depending on the sound that I want to achieve. Oh, and then we have a hole here in the bass, which is your input for your chord, which has a jack on the end, which you stick in the hole to make the connection happen. On the Flea bass, we have our input here on the body of the bass. So it's nice to have a chord that has a 90-degree angle like this, as opposed to one with the jack coming straight out of the end, because it's a little bit more troublesome. When you have it like this, and you have a 90-degree jack like this, one that comes out this way, you put it in, there's very little, it's very streamlined, and I think it's a good look, and it stays in, doesn't break, solid, it's rocking, you're ready to go. Oh, then we have the this little piece here, which corresponds with this little piece here, which are the strap holders. These are the part that hold the strap on, and if I had a strap, I'd be holding it on. And that's about it. That's the Flea bass, and just about all basses are made up of these parts, to varying degrees, and that's the Flea bass. It's a good bass. Okay, so we're going to show you real quick how to string the bass, which is something eventually you're going to have to do. Your string will break, your strings will get old, you will need to put new strings on at one time or another. And if you're like me, when I first started playing the bass, I really loved to string my bass. Before I ended up being a big rock star and having people string it for me, I really enjoyed putting on a fresh set of strings, and it's a good feeling thing. And you know, some guys, like, they really like their strings to be very, very old. The older they get kind of a really warm, dead, thudding kind of sound, which is a beautiful sound. And when some people like them really fresh, so they're really snappy and twangy all the time. Once again, this is a matter of personal preference. I like both for different things, depending on what I'm playing. But in any case, I took off the E string so I can put it back on and show you. Here's the E string. On one end, it has this little knob, which ends up down here at the bridge, and the other end, the string just stops, and it has this red cloth stuff on it. And that ends up down here in the tuning peg. So what we do is, here's the E string missing right here. Behind here is the corresponding hole on the bass, which is right here. You take this end of the string, you stick it in the hole, just whack that baby in there, pop that baby in there, feed it through. It goes in. Then take the string out. You see it's come all the way through. Make sure it's all the way through. Then you pull it down the neck, and you see that's where it will go, right there on the neck. Then you take this end, and you insert it into this part of the tuning peg mechanism, right into this hole. You feel, okay, it's in there solid. Then you bring it out along the side. You wrap it around once clockwise. And if there's too much string, well, you have to wrap it and wrap it and wrap it around several times. That means you have too much string, and you need to cut a piece of the string off at the end, which you can do with like a hard pair of like a cutting plier type of things, or you can just bend it and keep bending it over and over again. It'll break off. But anyways, you put it on there, you wrap it around clockwise, always clockwise, and then you turn the peg counterclockwise to tighten it. So you got it in there, you tighten it, tighten it, tighten it up. And as you tighten it, then you just kind of lay the string down in the nut, where it's to its corresponding place on the nut there, so it'll sit on the neck the right way. And you tighten it up until it till it achieves its appropriate tension, and then soon you'll be ready to rock. But once you put the string on there, you're going to have to tune it. Since you just put it on, it's not automatically in tune. You have to make it be in tune. There's different ways to tune. The easiest way in the beginning is to buy yourself a little electric tuner, even though I never had one when I was a kid. But that's the easiest way, because you just plug it into the tuner and it tells you, it tunes it for you, basically. But what I'm going to do, or you can tune it to a piano or any other instrument or record or anything that you know has the right pitch that you want to tune to. In this particular case, I'm going to tune the E string to the A string, which has already been on there and which is in tune, because as you can hear, the A, the D, and the G, which have been on there, are in tune together. They play together in a nice tuning, but you see if I add the E, that E is a little out. The E is way low, so we're going to need to bring it up. And the way to tune to another string is if you go to the 5th fret of the string directly above it, that will be the note. You can just and you play the harmonic, and you hear that. Hear it going. Wow, 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 wow. And it's tuned to that till that wow, wow stops and it balances out. And when it's going wow, 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 it's because the two frequencies aren't together, so they're clashing, and they're going wow, 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 and because they're dissonant. And as I tune it up, that up and down wave thing evens out, it becomes level, and we go from dissonance to consonance, and we're in tune. So I tuned it to the E string to the other strings that were on there, which were already in tune, but you can tune to any pitch that's in tune, and you will have that same wow, 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 wow sound when you get close, and then you just tune it until the fluctuations disappear and it becomes even, and you get it in tune. But you know, tuning, it takes a little while to learn how to do it. It's not something you're going to do right off the bat, but you got to figure it out and you learn how to do it. A tuner is the easiest way, but to be honest, I recommend not using a tuner and learning how to do it by your ear, because even though it might be difficult at first and it will take you some time to learn how to do it, if you learn how to tune by ear, you'll always be able to tune your bass quickly. It'll make you hear music that much better, understand music that much better, and just be a much better bass player. So a tuner is easier. I recommend not using a tuner. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the basic technique of playing the bass. The first thing I'd like to talk about, which is the technique which I use most commonly, and which is the most common technique for playing the bass, is plucking with your fingers. And the way that we pluck is we have these two fingers, the first and second fingers, and they alternate. You want to do it like they're walking, like this. You don't want to play pluck with one finger over and over again, or the second finger over and over again. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. And you need to have rules so you can break them. But if you alternate with these two fingers, that's how you pluck. You're walking. And you're not pulling the string with your fingers. You're not getting underneath and pulling like that. You're striking the string with your fingers. And I recommend practicing just alternating with these two fingers like this on the E string for a while to kind of get the feel of it. When it starts to feel comfortable, go up to the A string. And you notice that I'm not playing, I'm not pressing down any frets over here. I'm just alternating first and second finger, walking, plucking in a walking style on each string. Then go up to the D string. Up to the G string. And then back down to the E string. And just do this for a while and start to get the feel of it. You know, the bass is like anything else. The more you do it, the more it becomes part of you, the more it becomes natural, the more the bass just becomes an extension of who you are. as you do that, you can kind of make up exercises for yourself, like twice on each string. Three times on each string. And that's how you do it. But you always want to keep alternating the fingers until, you know, after a while you start to get fast, and just to, you know, you can. You can get faster, you can get slower. One other thing about plucking is, though the way that I do it is with the two fingers alternating, there are many great bass players, especially kind of more heavy rock bass players, like, you know, Geezer Butler, Robert Trujillo, these guys that play real heavy bass. They don't just use these two fingers, they often use the third finger, and in some cases even the pinky. But so instead of like going like alternating, sometimes there's a galloping technique. Well, they will use the third finger as well and go. It's not something that I normally do, but it's a technique that is definitely worth learning. The main thing is to get comfortable with walking and with alternating your fingers and with not pulling up on the string, but striking the string. There you go. That's plucking the bass. And that's what plucking is. Next thing I'd like to talk about is slapping, which is a style that I think was originated by Larry Graham of Sly and the Family Stone, but I'm not really sure who started it. He's famous for it. He's the first guy that's famous for it on the electric bass anyways. And once again, this is a technique that is done several different ways, and I have a way that I do it, my Flea way. But I recommend, you know, the deeper that you explore the bass and the deeper that you explore the technique, that you not only develop your own style, but study the styles of many people so you can see what is comfortable for you. But the basic technique is you strike a low string with your thumb, with the bone that's in the middle of your thumb right here, and say if I'm striking the E string with my thumb, you go. You don't go like this, you strike it, it's like you just pop it. You don't lay your thumb down on it like this, it just will stop. And you don't try to go like that or strike it in any which way from any side, you just pop down like that, just a quick little pop. And so you start, first get comfortable doing that. Basically, those are all just, I mean, I know I'm fooling around, but it's basically all just hitting it like that, and as you start to get more comfortable and you start to find rhythms that appeal to you, that's how you do it. And the second half of this technique is the pulling up. You pop down with your thumb, and then you pull it up with, I use my middle finger right here, and if I'll go on the D string, and I'll make an octave between the E's, which are this note and this note, I will slap down with my thumb, and then with my middle finger, it will go underneath the D string and pull up like this. Pulling up like this. If I'm not, you just. And together, and once again, practice just pulling up and finding that comfort zone, how that feels for you. So then you pop down with your thumb, and then pull up with your finger, and if you do it together, you start to learn how to do it. You start inventing exercises for yourself and bass lines that you like, as your knowledge of the bass and you know your knowledge of the harmonics and the theory of music increases. You'd find different ways to do it. But a technique that I have always used, and the way that I learned how to slap the bass, is I started making an octave like this, and I started playing a rhythm that goes like this. I go. just kept doing that until I started to do it. I did it over and over and over again until I began to find comfort and to find strength, which is what comes from practice, is you start to find comfort and strength, and that's what you need to be a good musician. So, and you know, eventually you get faster and faster, and you're slower. And the exercise that I do, and what I still use to warm up every time before I play a show, is I start doing octaves like that, and I start to move the octaves up and down the neck, playing octaves here with my left hand, which is something that you're going to learn as you study the bass. And I go. Slowed it down. Keep going. Then I go down the neck. And that's how I develop my particular slapping technique, which, I do it my own way. I have my own way. I'm not saying it's the only way, but that's how I do it. And that is the exercise that I developed for myself, which is kind of the building block of the style that I developed, is my Flea way of doing it. So that's slapping. The next technique that I want to talk about is picking, which is when you play with a pick. And I don't actually have a pick with me here today because I just don't have one. But I do have a quarter. And it's been brought to my attention that Chris Squire uses a quarter. And he's a good bass player. So basically, you play with a pick. Same thing, you have downstrokes, where you're holding the pick or the quarter or whatever it is you use, and I'm just going hand, I'm hitting it down. You go down, then you have upstrokes, and you have downstrokes and upstrokes together, and that's playing with a pick. Okay, in terms of your left hand with playing the bass, these four fingers, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, are going to be used to press down the strings in between different frets in order to create notes. Your thumb should sit behind the bass, and you don't want to tilt it like this. You don't want to have it like this. You want to be like this. And sometimes it's easier to kind of like get it in weird positions, but you've got to try to want to keep your thumb at a 90-degree angle from the ground. Or depending on that's if your bass is at a horizontal angle. But you want to try to keep your thumb straight up and down to the neck, just like it's one of the frets. And then your fingers should stretch out, covering these 4 fingers should cover 4 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I understand that in the beginning it's difficult. It's hard to reach with your finger. And I don't have particularly big hands, but over time your hand just starts to stretch and become limber in that way from practicing. A good exercise to achieve this with your fingers is the chromatic scale. The chromatic scale, C-H-R-O-M-A-T-I-C, chromatic. Chromatic means you're going by half steps. Would be to go like this. Press with your first finger on the first fret, your second finger on the second fret, your third finger on the third fret, and your fourth finger on the fourth fret. And so if first you play the open string, which means you don't have your fingers pressed at all, just the open string, just the E string. And then you play your first finger on the first fret, second finger on the second fret, third finger on the third fret, fourth finger on the fourth fret, and there you go. And you can go back down. Fourth finger, third finger, second finger, first finger. So all together it's like this. Open, first, second, third, fourth, third, second, first, open. And just practice that for a while. This will make your fingers strong, and it'll get your hands in the right position to be able to play a multitude of great bass lines as you go on. Next, go up to the A string and do the same thing on the A string. Open, first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, third finger, second finger, first finger, open. Maybe I'm going too fast. Go slow in the beginning. Might hurt your finger, might hurt your hand, might cramp up a little bit. Just take your time. If it starts hurting, stop and then start again. Over time, it will become easy if you keep at it. Bass playing takes a lot of practice. Then go up and do it on the D string. Do it a few times and up to the G string. Be sure to be patient and take your time when you're doing these exercises. Do them slowly. Try to get a good sound. You don't want to get a buzzing, weird sound. Try to get a nice, whole, full tone and take pride in your sound. It's very important. And no matter what, lots of different people could play the same bass, but everybody has a different sound. It depends on your nervous system, depends how hard you hit it, depends what type of person you are, but everyone has a different sound. One guy can go like this, and it sounds one way. Another guy can go like this, and it sounds another way. Everyone's got a different feeling, and everyone has a different way. So you want to concentrate on your sound, get a full sound, and work that chromatic scale to make your left hand strong. Put them all together. The chromatic scale is a great way to exercise. Use all your fingers and get strong. And over time, you'll move the position of your hand. So if we call this first position, because your first finger is on the first fret, then if you went up to here, to the fourth fret, you could call that the fourth position, because your first finger would be on the fourth fret, and you would do the same thing over here. Okay, so but we're going to start off for this lesson staying in the first position and doing like we just did. Open, first, second, third, fourth, third, second, first, open, and keeping your thumb in the same position, not sliding your thumb around, But you keep your thumb in that first position, keep your hand in that position, and it's difficult to stretch at first, but over time it will become easier, and you will begin to rock. Now we're going to learn something that is a little bit of music theory, a little bit of bass technique, and kind of the foundation for Western music that we all listen to and know. And this particular thing I'm going to show you is called the major scale. The major scale starts on one note and goes up to another note, which is an octave a part of it. Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is the major scale, and it's the foundation of Western music. And the way that you play the major scale, this particular scale is in the key of A. The first note is an A, which is also called the root note. So if you're in the key of A and you're playing an A major scale, the first note is the root, and the root is A. And I'm playing with my second finger on the E string, the A, and then with my fourth finger, I'm playing the B. The first finger then, again, moving up to the second string, to the A string, playing the C sharp, then my second finger, D, my fourth finger, E, my first finger up to the D string, playing an F sharp, the third finger on the D string, playing a G sharp, and the fourth finger on this D string, playing the A, which is an octave above, octave meaning eight notes above the original A that I played down here. And so if we have a good shot of this here, this major scale is first finger, fourth finger, up to the next string, first finger, second finger, fourth finger, then up to the next D string, first finger, third finger, fourth finger. And then we go back down, playing the fourth finger again on the D string, then the third finger, then the first finger, then moving down to the A string, the fourth finger, the second finger, the first finger, the fourth, moving down to the E string, the fourth finger, and then the second finger again. Yeah, we don't need to this is a pattern, which is a good pattern to get used to playing. And as you learn more about theory and understand more about how notes relate to one another, it will increase in value, and you'll have more depth of knowledge about what we're talking about here. But for now, for your first lesson, and this is very advanced for a first lesson, but I'm never one to estimate anyone's intelligence. We go. Okay, notice that my hand is staying in the same position when I play this. My thumb back here is right behind the A, kind of behind where the second finger goes, and or kind of in between the first and second finger. But my thumb is staying in one position, and so my hand is here, which is in this position, and it's not moving. I'm not sliding my hand around, keeping my hand in one spot, and I'm playing the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ba, da, 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 da. Take your time, do it slow, and you'll get it. Second finger, fourth finger, first finger, second finger, fourth finger, first finger, third finger, fourth finger. Then starting at the top and going down again. Fourth finger, third finger, first finger, fourth finger, second finger, first finger, fourth finger, second finger. So this is something that you can move all around the neck. The fingering and the position will be the same no matter where you play it on the neck. If I play it here on the A like we've been doing, we know what it is. But if I move it, say, down here, and I start my second finger on the F sharp here, then we're going to go same thing. First finger, fourth finger, first finger, second finger, fourth finger, first finger, third finger, fourth finger, and back down. Doesn't matter where you play it on the neck, as long as your hand is in the position, the note that you start on will be the root note of the scale that you're playing, and it will be do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ba, da, 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 da. You can do it all the way up here. Or go back down to A where we started. Another way to think of the major scale, and this is something that can be very helpful, is if you attach numbers to the notes. The 8 notes that we're playing in the scale, which are actually 7 notes because the top note is repeating the first note again. But if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you can begin to think of the notes and how they relate to one another, say between one of the most common and consonant notes that you can put together. If you're in the key of A and you want to make a bass line, and you know that you're playing in the key of A major, you know that you have this major scale to work with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if you play, say you want to make up a bass line, you could go between 1 and 5. And you can go. See, and I threw in the octave or the 8. And that's just 1 and 5 and 8, which is the same as 1, so it's just really just 2 notes. And say you wanted to incorporate 3, and then we have 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, then you go. But just so you know, when you think about all these notes in terms of numbers, then no matter where you are, you can relate those same intervals between the numbers to any key that you are anywhere on the neck. So if we have a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The distance between 1 and 5, boom, 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 would be the same in any key. So if I moved up here to C, and I was playing a C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here in C, I could go between 1 and 5. And that would be the same as if I were in A, and the distance between 1 and 5 would be the same as the distance between 1 and 5 in a different key. And if you say, like if you're playing in this major key and you have this major scale, which you should practice over and over again, all of a sudden you have something to work with, to be creative, to create your own bass lines. So within this major scale and within these 8 notes, you could make up a bass line. I know those are kind of corny bass lines, but I'm just trying to be very simple about it and incorporate these the notes that are in the major scale. I mean, there's a million different ways you could do it, but these are all, I mean, like for instance, if I were just to play in the key of A major and only use the notes that are in that scale, there's a million different bass lines I could make. There's a million different options. The potential for creativity and what you can do is limitless. Now, for instance, if I were to take a major scale in the key of E, which will be starting down here on the E string, and the fingering is a little bit different because I'll be using an open string, but it's the same thing. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ba, da, 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could play the bass line for Under the Bridge, which is a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, which falls strictly within a major scale, which is just. Okay, and in A major, you know, there's a million things you could do. This major scale. Sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 8, 1, 8. 1, 5, 1, 5. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Major scale. Learn your major scale. I know I'm waffling on about it, and I might not be expressing it as clearly as I would like, but that's the idea. And this is the way to do it. There are a few different fingerings, but this is a good way to do it. It would be very helpful and very good for any bass student to learn how to play major scales as I just played it, all up and down the neck, over and over again. So on and so forth. The bass guitar is usually the lowest instrument in any band. It provides the bottom for the band. It's the warm sound, it's the bed that everybody else sleeps on. It is the support, kind of the support for the higher instruments, the more melodic instruments, and a lot of times the instruments that get more glory, it's the support for them, and the stronger that the bass can support all the other instruments, the more the other guys can shine. So something I'd like to stress in being a bass player is the spirit of givingness, which is really kind of the most important thing to think of, I think, for any musician, but I feel like particularly for a bass player, often, you know, you're going to be supporting a singer, you're going to be supporting a soloist, you're going to be supporting a melodic instrument, you're going to be supporting all these other instruments, the higher frequencied instruments. And so your job, as well as like, having good time, your time being solid, having a good feeling for rhythm, which comes from practice and which comes from paying attention and studying music, is listening to what the soloists are doing. So what the soloists or the melodic instruments or the more featured instruments are doing. So the more that you can listen to what's going on with the other instruments and not just stay focused in your own world and just playing your part over and over again, which often, the bass part might be a simple part. But when you're listening to the other people that are playing, and you're playing your part, as simple or as complicated as it may be, the fact that you are listening and the fact that you are doing subtle nuances with your playing to complement the higher instruments, the better bass player you will be. And the other thing that I like to say about playing the bass is, playing the bass, more often than not, you're going to be part of a rhythm section, which means you're going to be playing with a drummer, and you and the drummer are going to be the rhythm section. And listening to the drummer is the #1 most important thing you can do as a bass player. When the drummer hits his bass drum, you want to hit your bass note in the center of that bass drum hit. And that's something that I've always strived to do, is to be inside the middle of the drum hits. And each note that you hit, if you can manage to, when a snare drum on a drum set goes pop, in that pop, there are 2 P's and an O, the p, p. And if you can be playing in that O, where you strike it, where you're right in the middle of that note, to me, that's the ideal, and that's what I always strive for. You want to make everyone else sound good as a bass player. You want to make the drummer sound like he's the best drummer in the world, and you want to make everyone else in the band, make them shine. It's like on a basketball team, the point guard, a good one, makes all the other players around him good. And I feel like as a bass player, you're kind of the point guard in a band. In a traditional rock band setup we're talking about, but in any traditional band setup, as a bass player, you're laying the foundation, you're making the bed, you are giving the ground for everyone else to dance upon, and you have to make it solid. Your rhythm has to be good, and you have to be listening and paying attention to what everyone else is doing, and doing the best job that you can to create the atmosphere for everyone else to be beautiful. And that's how I see it, that is the role of the bass in music. Of course, there are many exceptions, and myself being a total ham and a ball hog, I often take the lead and solo and make a spectacle of myself. But really, the main context in which I view myself as a musician, and when I see bass players that I admire, even the ones, like the great ones, such as the great bass player James Jamerson, who played on most of the great Motown hits, or even the great soloists like Jaco Pastorius, who revolutionized the bass guitar. They're always, even when they're just playing regular bass lines, they're doing subtle things that make them great. And the reason that the subtle things that they do make them great is because they're not doing them for the purpose of showing off or for being fancy or for doing it. They're doing it because they're reacting to the things that are happening around them. And that's why to be a great musician, any type of musician, listening to everyone else is the most important thing that you can ever do. And as a bass player, it is just crucial. And the more that you play, the more that these things start to become automatic. You start to internalize them, and you start to react without even consciously thinking about it, like thinking, oh, the guy just went whittle-a-whip, so I'm going to go whittle-a-whip. It's just a matter of listening and paying attention, and after a while, you become one with the music, and the music becomes you, and it becomes like breathing, and that's what it's supposed to be. My only other advice as a bass player is to be yourself, to love what you love. Don't worry about what anyone else tells you to like or what's cool to like or anything, but to embrace who you are. Every single person and every bass player has their own bass line inside of them. Everyone. And it's a unique bass line. And to play, and to practice, and to play, and to study in service of finding the uniqueness that is inside of you so you can express it as a bass player. And that's my advice about the bass guitar.